Our final speaker is Dr. Peggy Mason. She is professor of neurobiology at the University of Chicago. She's taught medical students, undergraduates, and graduate students and won awards for her teaching and mentoring. Dr. Mason has served on the American Physiological Society's Publications Committee and was a member of the Society for Neuroscience's Responsible Conduct Working Group, which revised the Society's Responsible Conduct of Research Guidelines. Dr. Mason now chairs the recently formed Ethics Committee of the Society for Neuroscience. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Peggy Mason. I'm professor of neurobiology at the University of Chicago. I've also been an active member of the Society for Neuroscience for more than 30 years. And I've served on a number of SFN committees in the more recent years. Since late 2012, I have served as the inaugural chair of the Society for Neuroscience's Ethics Committee. At the outset, I want to make clear that my remarks have not been vetted by the Ethics Committee, the Society for Neuroscience, or the University of Chicago, nor are my remarks endorsed by any of those entities. Of course, my perspective is informed by my various professional experiences. Nonetheless, the views that I express here are solely my own. I will start by briefly telling you about the goals and operations of the Ethics Committee. I'll then turn to what I view as the major challenges that we face in ensuring that scientists hold to the highest ethical standards in pursuing understanding and discovery. Finally, I will consider approaches to increasing engagement and enthusiastic buy-in to ethical scientific standards. So first, a brief overview of the Society for Neuroscience's Ethics Committee. Very hard to say, by the way. The Ethics Committee's charge is to ensure consistency in the treatment of ethical issues across the spectrum of society activities. In reality, most of what we currently do is to evaluate allegations regarding scientific communications with the Society for Neuroscience, which publishes the Journal of Neuroscience. These communications come in the form of submitted or published abstracts, manuscripts, or published articles. Details of our process for evaluating complaints are laid out in the first of the two Neuroscience quarterly articles that I sent to you. Importantly, we have two goals. The first and foremost goal is to maintain the hygiene of the scientific literature. In essence, we provide a defense for the scientific literature which, like a child, cannot defend itself. To that end, we recommend the rejection of manuscripts and retraction of papers with serious errors, actions designed to protect the accuracy of the scientific record and ensure forward scientific progress. Our second goal is to reprimand those who have failed to adhere to Society for Neuroscience's policies on responsible conduct. At present, reprimands take the form of punitive sanctions, which prevent individuals from participation in Society for Neuroscience activities or communications. In pursuing our two goals of scientific hygiene and punishment of offenders, we follow several principles. First, as elaborated upon in the second Neuroscience quarterly article that I sent to you, the Ethics Committee does not consider the backstory behind misrepresentation of data when considering whether and how to rectify the scientific literature. Intent is immaterial when it comes to our deliberations regarding retractions and corrections. Second, all identifying information about complainants, alleged offenders, and bystanders, such as co-authors, is restricted to the fewest number of people possible. For example, the identity of complainants is known to me so that I can inform them of the outcome of their complaint, but it is not known to the Ethics Committee members. Related to this, sanctions are not made public. Third, we are committed to due process for individuals accused of wrongdoing, who are always afforded, right off the bat, a chance to explain themselves. Fourth, even in situations where a junior scientist's hands have been those that produced an ethical violation, for example, used one image to illustrate two different conditions, we will always consider that the senior scientist shares culpability. The senior scientist's job is to train and provide oversight of scientists in training. The buck stops with the senior scientist. Finally, the Ethics Committee is aware of the profound uncertainty regarding the motive behind any particular violation. To paraphrase the shadow, Who knows what intentions lurk in the hearts, or actually brains, of neuroscientists? We therefore act with commensurate modesty. We aim to motivate scientists to educate themselves and correct ethical missteps. We do not aim to end scientific careers. With that background, I now turn to the challenges that keep laboratory scientists from seriously and openly engaging with ethical issues. First, engaging scientists who face myriad concerns with respect to funding, experimental progress, regulatory compliance, education, administration, and personnel is not easy. Pressing tasks overwhelm most working scientists on a day-to-day basis. It would be profoundly unrealistic to expect scientists to facilely and voluntarily spend time on ethics training over preparing for a class, finishing a manuscript, or sending in a grant application. In this era of shrinking resources, and with all other things in the status quo, dedicating time to ethics training is simply not going to win out over publications or grants. A second challenge is the great fear and panic engendered by the thought of being accused of an ethics violation. Because of the huge emotional meaning assigned to ethics violations, most scientists have constructed a view of those who violate ethics as other and different. They imagine a person that has secretly and intentionally fabricated data late at night over the course of many years, thereby polluting multiple published articles. In my view, such egregious cases do occur, but they occur rarely, and they are probably likely to continue to occur rarely. The vast majority of our cases do not involve wholesale data fabrication or multiple articles. Most would never have happened if there were more attention paid to ethics and scientific rigor within the laboratory environment. Discussion of relevant papers in journal clubs, laboratory meetings. I've also heard American scientists distance themselves from ethical violators by asserting that responsible conduct is really only a problem in other countries. An informal analysis that we've made suggests that ethics cases arise from countries in rough proportion to the origin of article submissions. Some scientists think that only junior scientists violate ethical standards, and others think that primarily senior scientists do so. In reality, violating ethical standards cuts across all levels of the scientific ladder. In some, there are diverse myths about ethics that scientists believe, but what these myths all have in common is that they serve to distance ethics as a problem of others. Finally, neuroscientists are a community of individuals bound to each other by ties that stretch over decades and often extend into the personal. Scientists don't want to get their colleagues or friends in trouble. They feel sure that so-and-so did not mean to do anything wrong and implicitly throw the scientific record under the bus because of personal feelings and allegiances. I can say from personal experience that informing even a perfect stranger of an ethical allegation is emotionally taxing. I never want anyone to have acted unethically. I always want a happy ending. I always want to be wrong. In closing, how can we promote virtuous scientific practices? How can we increase engagement and enthusiastic buy-in to thinking about ethics, talking about ethics, and rigorous scientific practice, turning that talk into a better reality? First, I think we really want to dial down the emotion by debunking the myths. For example, many cases are not anything approaching career ending, and they are easily resolved by education of the authors. One of my motivations in writing articles for the members of the Society for Neuroscience is, in fact, to talk about the facts of ethics and ethic violations. I want the sober facts to replace the myths that use Hitchcockian methods to tap into people's greatest fears. Second, I believe that we need to replace punitive sanctions with educational opportunities. Rather than creating an adversarial relationship with an accused, let's use a more collaborative approach that can turn past violators into advocates for ethics and scientific rigor. Let's use the process of ethical investigations to convert scientists, PI by PI, to believers in the value of the deliberately ethical approach to research. To that end, I am likely to invite past violators into future discussions. I want to show with my actions that I don't consider one ethical violation as an FFP brand to be carried forevermore. Truthfully, I would never have known of some of the more arcane violations, such as copyright ones, if I had not sat on committees that considered these issues. Ignorance does not evil make. Rather, ignorance is the breeding ground for education. Let's foster open discussions that accurately portray the interesting dilemmas that working scientists face and the responsible solutions that will best serve forward progress. That approach has a shooting chance of engaging working scientists.
Thank you. You all were models of staying within your time limit, so thank you for that as well.